So we're going to take a few videos to dig deeper into what is divine pedagogy. How did God show us how to teach other people about who he is, right? What tactics does he use? What are the underlying principles, maybe is a better term than tactic, right? What are the underlying principles with which he teaches us? And so the first foundational principle in all things is God always acts first and he invites a response. He always acts first in revealing himself to us. Very often we think with the students in this session, wherever we are, catechesis of the Good Shepherd, a rotational format, Edge, adult formation, OCIA, whatever it is, we think, all right, I got these folks in the room and now I will start teaching them the thing that I'm supposed to teach them. God has already started calling them to himself. He's already trying to teach them. We are, in a certain sense, in the organized, systematic, catechetical world of these sessions that we run, we are trying to resonate with something that God is already doing in their lives and helping them to recognize that God is already doing it. That's important. That might seem like a small detail and like it doesn't really impact the way that you go about what you're doing, but it's important to recognize God is always working. He chooses to work with and through us. He does not need us in order to catechize this individual. He can do it just fine on his own. Actually, he can do it better on his own, frankly, than he could through me, than he could through you. So God always acts first, and we have to recognize that. We are participating in a divine act by trying to hand on the faith to somebody, by trying to explain some aspect of the faith to someone. God always acts in reaching out to us. And his motivation is always for our benefit and not for his own. He's always after our salvation and our deeper knowledge and relationship with him. That's the whole point. Sometimes we think like, I'm teaching this kid so that we can have better formed kids who are going to be confirmed or better formed kids for first communion, or I'm teaching these kids so that they'll go home and get their parents to come back to mass. All those are wonderful things, but that's not what catechesis is primarily about, especially not from God's perspective. It's always about the individual's benefit, right? And so we're teaching them this session on the structure of the church. We're teaching them this section on the work of mercy, works of mercy. We're teaching them this session on prayer. Why? To benefit that individual soul or those individual souls, right? Usually there's a bunch of them in the room. It's for their benefit, not ours, not to benefit the church, not to make the numbers look better, not so that the kids can answer the questions at confirmation, none of that stuff, right? We're doing it for the benefit of the individual souls because that's how God shows us to pass on the faith. And God never forces himself upon us. He always proposes without imposing, and he awaits a free response. He even allows people to reject him. We can see numerous times in the Bible where people walk away from Jesus. The Pharisees ask him these ridiculous questions. Jesus gives them an answer. Instead of responding in faith, they storm off in a huff, and he lets them go. The rich young man asks him, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, follow the commandments. And he's like, I've been doing that already. And so Jesus tells him, all right, go sell everything you own, give it to the poor, and come and follow me. And the guy goes away sad. And Jesus lets him go away sad to sit in that, right, and let that sadness mature a little bit, right? So that hopefully we don't hear what happened to the rich young man after that. Perhaps he did actually go off and sell all that he owns and go follow Jesus. We don't know. Perhaps he just went off sad and stayed sad. We don't really know. All right. Perhaps most famously, after the bread of life discourse in John chapter 6, verse 66, crowds of Jesus' disciples walked away from him over his teaching on the Eucharist, and he let them go. He does not force people to follow him. Sometimes we have this idea that the way to solve the problems in the church is have this event and require the parents to come to it, or require the kids to do this thing, or have these other requirements. Requirements don't motivate relationship and love, right? In fact, they tend to foment the opposite. If you're required to do something, you're doing it against your will, you go into it predisposed to not like it. And so it actually works against us. It is very counterintuitive and counter to the divine pedagogy to force people to do things. There are legitimate requirements for receiving sacraments, that kind of thing, right? We're not necessarily talking about that. Um, Although it is related, right? We can't force people into certain things in order to receive sacraments. They can't earn them. That's not the point. And so making our little checklists and things like that doesn't actually serve a purpose. Pope Leo, in his encyclical Magnificat Humanitas, talks about this as well in paragraph 25. He talks about our approach, evangelical approach of a gentle proclamation of truth that is not imposed. And then later in that same paragraph, he talks about our goal should be initiating good processes and enabling them to mature. In this way, the truth of the gospel is not imposed from above, but grows over time within the concrete interweaving of lives, communities, and cultures. Right? Not imposed from above, but we start these processes of prayer and different ways of thinking and different ways of seeing the world and let those mature. That takes time and freedom. Let those mature in the hearts of our students so that the gospel comes to fruit in their life and isn't just imposed from above. We have got to respect human freedom because freedom is a necessary part of a responsive faith. Faith is freely choosing to believe in God and wholeheartedly to adhere to Him and everything that He has revealed to us to be true. Nobody can be forced into that. God doesn't force them into that. We shouldn't try to either.